SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Artificial intelligence is without doubt a very useful tool, but it also has the potential to be quite dangerous. Managing Director of Cyber Matters, Saaim Khan, says confidentiality and integrity are critical concerns when using AI tools. He outlines how to be careful with AI to Jeff Waters.
When we talk about security, it's important to understand that security is broken down into three core tenets. One being confidentiality, so keeping things limited to those who need to know them. Integrity, which means that it is what it is and it's not been tampered with. And availability, which means that it's there when it's needed. That it combined together is security. So now when we look at it from an AI perspective, the implications are similar. For example, when you choose to upload a piece of information about your business into an AI system like ChatGPT or any generative AI chat assistant, are you giving it information that it will be using as part of its training data? And if you are effectively using proprietary information and giving it to someone who doesn't need to know this. So that's a concern. The second is, if you've used any of these generative AI tools, you will have noticed its tendency to hallucinate. And hallucination means that it incorrectly assumes and provides wrong information. I'm going to take a slight segue here and try to personify what AI tools are. Think of these AI tools as extremely gifted children, savants.
What a nightmare to deal with.
Well, ultimately, children want to make the adults happy. They want to seek validation. And the AI tool in this context will do whatever it can to answer your question, even if it means making things up. So you have to understand that when you use these generative AI tools, there is a large proportion of information that could be hallucinated or imagined or incorrectly presented. So the integrity of the information is questionable. And lastly comes availability. You cannot rely on these tools because they don't come with any kind of guarantees or warranties. So you cannot use AI tools as part of a critical chain of services that you provide because they will let you down and you can't do anything about it. So the dependency on this should never be critical. Now, I want to go back to the first topic I talked about what you enter into this. So some of these platforms have now offered paid subscriptions which promise to keep your data sandboxed or separate from its training data so you can comfortably put in information there. But bear in mind that some of this information is not even yours to begin with. And I'll give you an example of this. Let's suppose you are a business consultant who is supposed to do some market analysis for your client. And your client has provided you with some information pertaining to their industry. You can't put that information into the GPT instance because it's not your information to begin with. You've been trusted with that information for analysis that you need to do. Now, in saying that, I'm pretty sure someone listening to this will be like, yeah, well, but... So let me answer that as well. If you are in a position where you need to use a tool like this, the best way to do so is to anonymize the information. For example, let's say your company is called Acme Widgets. Replace the name of Acme Widgets with a widget manufacturer. Replace, for example, it says Acme Widgets based out of Melbourne. Replace that with a widget provider based out of Australia. Keep the information general. We are digressing when I say this, that you should also look at how you are prompting your tools. Imagine that when you're building out these prompts, you need to give it discrete instructions. You can't give it a generic instruction saying, hey, go ahead and do X. You actually have to tell it, I would like you to do A, given B because C. And then you go to your next task, and then you go to your next task, and so on. So with all of this, from a security perspective, what's important to understand is with AI tools, you have to really think about who owns the data that you're playing with.
And who will use it in the future?
Correct. Because there is no guarantee associated with the whole sandbox concept. So if you are paying $50 a month for this paid subscription, there is nothing stopping that AI company from changing its terms and saying, hey, you know, all that information that you did, we decided we do need to use that, but don't worry, we'll anonymize your data. But you don't know the extent of what anonymization they will do. So you are, in effect, at their mercy on what they decide to do with the information, even though you're allegedly paying for that privilege of separating it. As a security practitioner, my approach is to keep things generic. We use generative AI tools. We use AI-based tools to do a little bit of the grunt work, for example, parsing through lines and lines of data, validating whether a particular type of code will work or not work. So we do use them as part of our day-to-day job, but we're not putting in anything from our clients. We're not putting in anything that has specific context or identities or relevance to specific scenarios, because that is when you're kind of playing on the line with respect to privacy and with respect to your proprietary information.
Sounds like you should lock this in as a policy with all of your employees as well.
That's a great point, Jeff. And that's something that we as a consulting company are encouraging our clients to think about. Typically, when you join an organization, regardless of how big or small it is, you have something called an acceptable use of IT policy. It's a contract, or it's rather a list of rules that you agree to abide by when using the company's data, networks, tools, applications, and so on. All organizations need to be thinking about, we will have to define what's acceptable and what's not acceptable when it comes to AI. And there has been a lot of recent press around certain tools being banned by governments or certain tools being labeled as dangerous. Instead of going down the path of labeling every single tool, make a decision on what tools you are inherently okay with. For example, Google provides Gemini, which is incorporated in its entire product suite. Similarly, Microsoft provides Copilot, which is incorporated into its entire suite. If you decide that you're okay with using generative AI tools, you should define whether these are the tools that are allowed and everything else is not allowed or is blocked by default. So that is the approach that we recommend organizations should take. Define what's good and block everything else.
That was Saaim Khan, Managing Director of Cyber Matters. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.